Welcome to Andi and Mich,
the podcast where two sisters spill the tea on life from two totally different generational perspectives.
I'm Andi, the Gen X sis, seasoned, open-minded, and powered by strong coffee and even stronger opinions.
And I'm Mich, the millennial sis, curious, chaotic, and still trying to figure out if my life choices are written in the stars or just random decisions. Together we dive into everything from deep life lessons to pop culture, embarrassing stories, and the occasional existential crisis.
Expect laughter, a little chisme, and maybe even a surprise ghost story straight from the family archives. So grab your cafecito
and your emotional support snack,
and let's dive in. Welcome back to Andi and Mich, two sisters, two generations, and today, a whole lot of spooky, woo-woo, and wait, what just happened?
Yes, we are diving into the weird, the unexplainable, and the definitely maybe paranormal.
Ghosts, signs, intuition, call it what you want. We've all had those moments that made us pause and ask, was that real?
So whether you're a full-blown believer or a loving skeptic, grab your cafecito, light a candle, spray some sage, and let's dive in.
Today, we're going to dive into some fun, woo-woo, spooky topics. We're going to talk all about ghosts, paranormal, the unexplained, signs from the universe. As most of us probably are aware, this idea of believing in the supernatural and the unexplained has been in existence since forever. You can watch it on the History Channel, and we can't help but to be pulled in by the possibility that there is something else happening. So where do you think these beliefs come from?
That's a great question. I mean, human beings have always been naturally curious about what happens after we die. Spirits and ghosts are deeply rooted in culture and religion, right? In ancient Egypt, they believed in Ka, spirit, and Ba, personality, which could live on after death. You look into Christianity, they believe in an afterlife, judgment, and possibility of spirits interacting with the living as contributed to Western ghost folklore. And then you look at indigenous cultures, and many indigenous cultures worldwide, from Native American traditions to African beliefs, have long held that spirits remain among the living to provide guidance, protection, and wisdom. So, culturally speaking, there's a wealth of knowledge and experience that's passed on to us. And I think a lot of times in modern society, it's kind of shunned or looked down upon.
Yeah, it is very fascinating to reflect on the history and how long it's actually been around and how it's part of mythology and it's part of storytelling and passing down generational beliefs. I mean, even in our own culture, in Latino culture, right? We celebrate Dia de los Muertos, which is all about ghosts roaming the earth. We grew up with family members that openly talked about spirits and ghosts and life beyond, believing in something bigger. So let me ask you this. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And that wraps this podcast episode. I do. I believe in ghosts. I believe in energy. I believe in spirits. Listen, okay? I think if we look back in history and things have been talked about for generations upon generations upon generations upon generations, there has to be some kind of truth to the element of the storytelling, right? And whether you want to believe it or not, or if it might be something controversial because of your own personal spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs, I understand that. Do you believe in ghosts?
And this is Andi here, tuning in from the celestial space station. Yeah, I'm probably one of the most woo-woo members of the family. I believe in a lot of things that a lot of our family members are very skeptical of. And I do agree. I do personally see things as energy and feel my way through the universe and our conscious world that way. And I think sometimes we can probably experience different kinds of energy that often get labeled as ghosts and might not be.
Like Interstellar, he's in one particular part of space and time, and he's communicating through that part of space and time in the past.
I mean, the current reality, it's appearing as if there's a ghost.
That's a very big possibility.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. And I definitely believe in, again, the energy and the vibe. So I think sometimes situations feel real ghostly to me. Like, that's real spooky. Other times, it's like there's a vibe. There's definitely an energy there.
For sure. And some people who are living feel like ghosts.
You know who you are.
You know what that means.
I feel like a ghost. Don't worry, we're going to cut that out.
Are we?
I think there's a fine line, too, between like our intuition and our imagination. Because even as someone who does believe in ghosts and believes in energy and light work, sometimes I catch myself being real overdramatic, recognizing that, okay, my imagination is running wild right now. It's running a little rampant because I might be scared.
You're scaring yourself.
Yeah. And so your imagination just all of a sudden there's 10 ghosts cheering you on walking down the hallway to get to the other side, or that you're going to see something crazy and it's not real. It's just all in your head.
And I think on the flip side, there's situations like mine where I've shared it and I've been told there's no way. And so then I went, yeah, there's no way, and downplayed my own experience because other people do not have the capacity to believe in things outside of ordinary.
It depends on the circles you're in
and the circumstances.
And I think a lot of skeptics hang their hat on that like it's just your imagination versus recognizing that, maybe there's something to it. And there are instances where it's actually someone's intuition.
When you have intuitive moments, you'll then know the difference. You have to experience it first. And then it changes how you interact with things like walking into dark rooms and things of that nature. I'm not nearly as scared as I used to be when my imagination did run rampant. And then once I actually had a weird experience that I couldn't explain, I was like, okay, so that's what that actually feels like. But also, sometimes living people have some energy, and we can get to that later, that could really throw you up. They walk in and you're like, whoa, what in the freaking golem?
I mean, but those are living people, not ghosts.
You're right, they're ghouls.
Those are ghouls, not ghosts. But it does lend to the fact that energy is a thing that can linger in spaces, that can be felt without words. It's just a knowing when the energy is strong enough. And it definitely feeds into this topic of things that we can't explain. Do you watch scary movies, ghost stories, things like that?
I do. There was a point in time where I was watching a lot of scary movies and it was kind of normalized. I know a handful of people that work in like actual film, and they particularly work in horror movies. And so I've been exposed to a lot of scary movies. I particularly like psychological thrillers, but for whatever reason, movies about possession really bother me.
Oh yeah, no. I have never watched The Exorcist all the way through.
The Exorcist didn't bother me, but some of the other more modern films, I remember reading a lot of different articles that were written about The Exorcist and the things that happen on set. Really creepy.
Which makes it worse.
Yeah, it makes it worse. But it weirdly didn't get to me too much. The Conjuring and those kind of films really bother me. Maybe it's like some deep-rooted stuff from being a part-time Catholic growing up. Yeah, but some of that stuff like does really freak me out. And then like I've had friends that are like, let's just go watch this. And I made the mistake of not knowing anything about the film. And then I was sitting in the theater and I'm like, what the? I was not ready for this. And I think I need to go home and watch Queer Eye for like 3 hours to cleanse my mind.
Into your life.
Yeah. How about you? I mean, I know this answer.
I know the answer to this question.
But has there ever been a time where you've watched a scary movie or a ghost movie that didn't totally get to you?
Yes and no. So I'm a complete child. But I have to, this is true, and I own it 100%. I do not like scary movies. I will sometimes tolerate a like real life ghost show or something like that, like Ghost Hunter. Things that kind of are telling like the history of a place through like ghost hunting, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because I dig the history part, but I have to watch them during the day.
Yeah.
Literally when the lights are on, and I have time similarly to cleanse my soul, reset my nervous system before it gets dark so I don't panic. And that is the child in me. I don't like the feeling of being scared. And a lot of movies try to evoke that as much as possible. And I don't enjoy it. Like I find no joy whatsoever in any kind of scary movie. A psychological thriller, maybe, as long as it's more on the psychological thriller side and not trying to be as much of a scary movie type flick. You know what I mean? Because I think there's a difference. And I can't watch too much of it because then, again, I have a very intuitive brain and a very imaginative brain all together. So all of a sudden, everybody in Starbucks to me is a serial killer.
You got me. That was funny.
Super paranoid. And it's just not. Yeah. So I had to make a conscious decision for myself when I was much younger We watched that stupid, oh God, what was it that came out? The Blair Witch Project. And I never really watched it. I went with all my friends because it was like all the hype and pretended to watch it. And I never watched half of it. And I think at some point, I'm pretty sure I had my eyes closed. It turns out it wasn't that big of a deal, but
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
one of the actual ghost movies that got me when it first came out was The Sixth Sense.
That one really got you?
And this was a long time ago because it's an old movie. Because it directly talks about ghosts and the experience and seeing them. And I think that's a big fear for me. I don't want to see ghosts. I'm really open to a lot of different other spiritual means of connection and communication. But it really got me. I went home, and this is when I still lived at home with mom and dad and you.
Yeah, I was there.
And I like kept all the lights on because I couldn't go to sleep.
Really?
I was like, nope. To be fair, we also lived in a house that was haunted.
Yes, we did. I think that's probably why. And I've only told a couple of the stories to people that I actually know in real life because we lived in a house that just had a lot of weird occurrences. And I think you got to be careful who you tell because sometimes people just don't understand. They've never had anything like that happen. Sometimes they're hyper religious and it could feel like a threat to them. So, yeah, but I could see how that could really bother you. I didn't even think about that actually. I've suppressed so much.
And then we're wondering why we can't run down the hall at night.
I know.
To get to our beds because we grew up with a lot of weird shit and that stuff lingers. It sticks with you. But yeah, I appreciate reality shows that try to debunk some things because even they come across instances that they can't explain.
When you think of the expansiveness of the universe, it's just like there's no way to really argue. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we don't even know most of our oceans.
That's like alien talk. That's a different episode. Like how many times have you ever just felt like a chill or you knew that you weren't alone in a space?
In my late 20s, I used to go traveling throughout the US a lot and driving on road trips to ghost towns. More the history of the ghost town, but I mean, some of them were creepy. And some of them also you had to actually hike into a deserted area. There was many a times where I was like, am I in danger?
You had to rethink your life choices.
Yeah. And well, they were really cool for the photography element of it. There were times where I was standing in buildings and I swore I heard something.
I've had many instances where I've just felt clear as day as if you had walked up next to me or behind me. I remember years ago, decades ago, at a job site, we all had these desks in the back and we were all therapists. So we just had shared space. And it was like an old warehouse backspace. I was new, so I didn't know anything about the space, but I was back there. And I could have swore that someone was sitting in the cubicle behind me the entire time. I thought my colleague was there the entire time that I was back there typing notes. So much so that I called out like, hey, do you know what I'm supposed to put in X, Y, and Z field? Because I was filling out some paperwork and I was just learning how to do all the paperwork. And there was no response. So I got up and looked over and nobody was there. I looked around the room and realized I was the only person back there. And I freaking ran to the bathroom, which was on the other side to get out of the space. And it freaked me out like so bad. I told my coworker, I said, oh my God, I thought you were there. She's like, no, I stepped out a while ago to go have a meeting with this other person. And she's like, why? Did you see something or feel something? And I'm like, why? What do you know? And so she told me that there was like a man that they've all seen hanging out in that back place. And they've all had different experiences with feeling like somebody was there. But some of the people who have been there late in the day or really early in the morning alone have seen him. And they all described him the same way.
Oh my God, that's scary.
Dude, I did not want to work. I never went back there alone anymore. I wasn't going to stay after hours. No way.
That's so creepy.
Are you crazy? No. And I've worked in a lot of places where there's a lot of old history and ghost sightings and ghost stories. I've lived in a lot of places that we've had that. So yeah, I totally know that feeling. It's the worst when you're like confident that it's a person and you turn around and there's nobody there.
One thing that I've experienced a few times and I thought, this is the day that I lose my mind, I guess. I've been sitting somewhere, I've been in a building and I've heard clear as day somebody say, hey, my eyes got big, my pulse started to kind of increase. I very clearly heard something. I have had moments where I felt like somebody was walking behind me. which is not a good feeling.
That's not a good feeling.
Bad.
Ghosts are never a good feeling. Stage 5 clinger.
Stage 5 clingers. I'm curious, knowing what we grew up around and what happened in the house, did you ever share it with people?
Yeah.
Did you get more comfortable as you got older, or were you always open about it?
You mean like, did I share it then when it was happening?
With other people?
Oh, yeah. My friends and I used to talk about it all the time. Like ghost stories and just different experiences. Everyone had their own stories. I talk about it to people if they're open to the conversation.
Really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
We had an aunt that had a doll collection.
Like collectibles.
Yeah, really expensive dolls. Right at the base of her stairs toward her front door, she had this a china cabinet, but it's all glass, so you could see through it. And she had her dolls on display. And it had a little lock on the front of the door, expensive dolls. So one day, me and a cousin were spending the night over at her house, and we were upstairs asleep. And we hear the door of the thing open. Like, it didn't open lightly. It opened like someone flung it open. Made a loud noise. When we got up to look to see what it was, all the dolls were on the floor. All the dolls were on the floor, and all their eyes were open.
That's like a full-on Chucky moment.
We looked at our aunt, and she had gotten up, and she was like, "Don't worry, it happens all the time."
Oh, hell no.
And she
That's
basically
like,
told
I gotta
us,
nope myself out of this place.
she went downstairs, she cleaned them all up, locked the thing. I think what she meant to say was that she forgot to lock it.
I don't think so, because, like, I think it's easier for us to talk about these things because it is in our family. I bet you anything she was like, yeah, there's a ghost that live here, but she didn't want to scare you.
So she's like, "Don't worry, it happens all the time." She went and she cleaned everything up.
No.
She locked them back in the thing. And this time she made us go sleep in the room with her and lock the door. And I remember feeling super unsafe from that point on. So when we would go to make tamales at her house, I'd be like, "No, I'm fine. I never need to come back here again." Sometimes me and the cousin that experienced that, we would like kind of reminisce about it and laugh, because I was like, obviously I didn't really believe that the dolls came to life in any capacity. I just didn't understand what had happened. And then like trying to reason with yourself as a child, like you're just like, you got like a 10-minute window span.
Yeah, it's like your creativity kicks in. And then also your just sense of reality to protect you kicks in and like wants to shut down.
Yeah. We're going to pretend like that never happened kind of thing.
You think that's one of the most profound family ghost stories?
Not for me. One year, this happens directly to me. One of my cousins, she had like an upstairs bedroom. It was a very narrow staircase, but it was encased by 2 walls. So when you walked up, it was just like a couple stairs and walls. And then it led you all the way up to the top, which essentially was the attic of the house, but it split into 2 sides. So on one side was one bedroom, the other side was the other, but their closets opened up into the attic of the house. So when you would go into the closet, there was a little tiny crawl space. And if you crawled through that crawl space, like we did because we were curious kids, there was a whole other side of an attic with boxes of leftover memorabilia and things that the family before left. So on Thanksgiving, everybody was eating, everybody was loud, having a good time. I mean, we're a Latino family, Puerto Rican family, playing a bunch of music,
as we do.
And so I realized I left something upstairs. So I went upstairs to go get something. And as I was running up the stairs, a big rock hit me in the back of my leg. I turned around and all I saw was the rock falling down. So I ran back downstairs to see if it was one of our boy cousins. No one was there. No one was in the house whatsoever. I ran back up the stairs thinking that was really weird and felt a little bit of fear, but just like, that was strange. The rock hit me again. And I ran into the room really quickly and into the room, grabbed what I needed to grab. And as I was walking down the stairs, a rock hit me again, but this time in the back of the head. That was a kid. And I remember just being like so afraid. And I ran to Theo and told him. And he was like, "Don't worry, Mija. It's nothing. You're just, hallucinating. No worries." Did you have fever? Check her, did you have fever?
Nothing to worry about.
How about you?
I have a lot from like when we grew up and stuff, of course. One in particular that's coming to mind right now is when my partner and we used to live in this apartment and it was like really cheap to live there. It was not in a great neighborhood. And I always wanted to move out of that place because I always felt like there was a vibe there that just didn't quite feel settled. But he's a healthy skeptic and was like, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
And then one day I was getting ready. I don't remember, we were going somewhere. And I was getting ready in the room, and he was across the hall in the bathroom, gonna take a shower.
Yeah.
And I heard clear as day and felt the warmth of somebody's breath at my ear, like if you playfully came up behind me and said my name.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was him. I like quickly turned around, like, stop it, you're scaring me. And nobody was there. My heart sank to the ground.
Yeah, that's scary.
And I was like, oh my God. And so I ran over across the hall to the bathroom, and he was in the shower. And I'm like, did you just come over here and try to scare me? And he didn't know what I was talking about. And I totally freaked out. Literally from that moment on, I was on a mission to move. Can't live here anymore. It's done. It's done. My name was said clear as day. It was a man's voice, and it was like warm. And that freaked me out.
That's really scary.
What about like paranormal stuff that maybe it's not considered paranormal, right? What about like dreams that feel too real? I have weird dreams. Like I had a dream about Dad that we've talked about before he passed away. Right before he passed away, I was having this very lucid dream about him that seemed really strange. And I kind of felt like I was dreaming too. I was very confused about what was happening in the dream. And it was very detailed, and things that were happening made sense for the most part.
Yeah.
But I was also confused as to why it was happening.
Okay.
And I kept trying to get clarification from him, and he kept saying he had to go. And at the very end of the dream, I felt his mustache on my face
in
and
real life.
Smelt him. And in that instant, the phone rang, and it was Mitch on the other line letting me know that he had passed and we needed to go to the hospital. And that was probably the most vivid ghost related story as it pertains to like somebody passing or like having this connection to our loved ones in a dream kind of way. Yeah, because sometimes ghost dreams or dreams related to ghosts and things like that, they're not always scary. And also like paranormal activity in your house, like it's not always scary.
Yeah. So for our listeners, we have lost two very close people in our lives, both our father and our middle sister. And so we've had a lot of experience with loss. Also just family members passing away.
They come from giant families.
Pretty enormous families.
Yeah.
And I think on that topic of having dreams where they're almost like sending messages, and it feels like they're very like they're communicating something. I've had a couple of dreams of Dad and our sister kind of communicating things to me, particularly when our mother got sick and was a scary time for us. They just were like, hey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. And she beat all the odds, which is pretty wild. And so I think sometimes that does happen, and we are connected in ways that are unexplainable. There's some kind of knowing, and whether it's actually a spirit or a pre-existed person, that's a correct term,
or someone who has passed.
Someone who has passed away. That's the real question.
Yeah.
Or if it's just a big picture thing that we can't really comprehend.
Yeah. Yeah. Or is it an imprint of their energy? Or is it our own memories that are creating these experiences? I mean, that's why there is a lot of room for healthy skepticism. If we are open to the idea that anything's possible, then anything can be possible.
True.
And there could be different explanations for it. But my explanation is it's ghosts and they're real. There's always this kind of healthy level of skepticism. There's a lot of denial. Not only in our family stories, but our friends' family stories and other stories that people have told us.
Right.
With superstitions. And the superstitions are so prevalent that I feel like I learned early on about some of these things, but didn't know why we were doing them.
Yeah.
So like you light the candles for the ghosts, or you put out a cup of water if you're having any kind of activity so that the ghosts can be able to move through the space.
See, I don't know a lot about superstitions. Because when you said the water thing, blew my mind. I was like, wait a minute.
Actually, the aunt that you told the story about, she used to do that in her house because she moved to a new house and she still had similar ghost issues. Girl, yeah, it was attached.
That is creepy.
Or even like our grandmothers used to suggest things to do to protect the energy of your home, lighting sage and palo santo and doing things like that that felt very ritualistic in some ways. And they always used to use phrases like, don't bring that negative energy into the house. Don't let ghosts follow you home. But I do think that's really interesting that a lot of families and people that we know who might be superstitious, but also skeptics.
Well, I think skepticism allows you to feel a sense of normality in things that are beyond your control. And also, you could get too involved with something and something bad could happen. And the question of sanity comes into play. Having a healthy dose of skepticism is essential when you're dabbling with things that are not fully understood. Just to have like a little bit of reason and logic kind of just sprinkled on there like a nice little glitter pie.
The little magical glitter pie.
Little magic glitter pie.
What about like signs from the universe? I know we're talking about ghosts and ghost stories. As an owl flies by the window, there's also this whole other area that people sometimes talk about of like the intuitive sign, or that they're signs from the universe or signs from their loved ones that have passed on. Do you believe in those things? Do you believe in signs from the universe?
Yes. I have a weird association and connection with the number 2 and 4. It's really interesting and strange. I don't know. I have like this affinity with both those numbers or any, and this also could be a sign of neurodivergence. Any multiple of 2 and 4. I don't know why.
Have you ever looked it up like in numerology?
No, I haven't.
You should.
Sometimes I associate that with like good luck or like a good sign, I guess. And I've had, when Andi first found out she was going to have a daughter, I had a dream. And in the dream, we were on a plane. And at this point, Andi was living in a different state and I was in the state of California. We were on this plane and the plane was experiencing really bad turbulence. And I mean, like we were going to crash turbulence. And she was panicking. I was like, it's okay. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Why are you freaking out? And she screamed at the top of her lungs, I'm pregnant. And I looked at her and all the turbulence stopped. And it was just like everything just stopped shaking. Woke up, immediately called her. I said, are you pregnant? She said, no, you're crazy.
I full on lied.
She did.
I full on lied because it was too early and we weren't sure yet. But I did know then. And then later when I told Mitch that, yeah, she was right.
Yeah.
And I was pregnant. She was like, I knew it. The dream was so clear and I just knew that it was a sign.
It was
like a message to me that something was going on with you.
It was such a real dream. And I've had that with a few different close people in my life where I'll have some kind of a dream or just a knowing. It's a weird feeling that something is off or wrong, that I need to call and check on them. Or so I think we become entangled in some of our closest relationships with people. And distance really isn't a factor. If you're super intuitive and you're entangled in their energy, I don't know how to explain it better than that.
It's like those stories of like twins that were separated at birth and they find each other as adults and realize they lived like 2 blocks away from each
other. I think, I mean, maybe it's quantum entanglement. I don't know.
It's definitely something to do with
there's something
the universe and the energy of it.
How about you? Do you believe in signs?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I believe in all kinds of signs. For me, it's a lot of 111s. I see that a lot. And I usually will see it when I feel like I need a reassurance of some sort. And that comes up a lot. Nature. So I get a lot of nature signs. So I'll get like repetitive things. I'll never see a hawk. And then all of a sudden, I'll see a hawk every day for 2 weeks in a row. And like right outside my door where they never are. There's no nest nearby. Actually, before one of our big kind of family transitions at the beginning of this year, I kept seeing a coyote.
Well, that's right.
Every morning. And it would stop. And it was like 6-8 feet away from me. And it would just stop and stare at me.
It was asking itself, is today the day?
And I was like, I don't know what to do because I don't know how okay this is or not. But it never did anything. It was never aggressive. It just walked by as soon as I came out. And this like different times. It wasn't like I was meeting it at its morning walk or whatever. All of a sudden, it was just there and staring at me.
That's bizarre.
So I had to start looking it up. Like, what does this mean? But I get a lot of that. Music is a big one for me. I wake up a lot with loud music playing in my head. And so I'll look up the lyrics and somehow it's related to things. And in our family, we have a big musical connection. And a lot of things I think are communicated through music versus words. So that's a big one. But yeah, for sure. Signs are a big thing. Like if you notice and pay attention, be surprised.
Yeah.
How many signs you have around you.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I actually, when our father passed, I had just gotten a tattoo of an owl for him on my wrist. And so I do associate owls with him. So it's a little weird that one just flew
Hmm.
by. I was like,
Or like
"Mm."
we've gotten in a car together
Yeah.
and like all of a sudden a song will jump on to your playlist that's like reminds us of our dad and we didn't put it on.
It would just kind of show up.
I do truly believe that sometimes those messages are there to help guide you and direct you. And I'll give you an example. When I was in grad school and I had to take a break from grad school for my health, I took a year off.
Uh-huh.
And it was such a chaotic time that I was contemplating not returning to grad school because I was like not feeling like I could do it and I
Yeah.
could manage it. And so it literally was like me saying no and telling my partner, well, if it's meant to be, then the universe will tell me.
Yeah.
And I went to grad school in a place that's like an hour away from where I worked and lived. No connection to any of those places. And I was taking a walk at work down a path. And I took a back path because I liked to try to keep it quiet. I wanted to avoid people. You know, me and small talk, we're not great. So I was like, I'm going to take this back path that nobody ever takes because it's more quiet to get to my destination. And on that path, I kid you not, as I'm walking, in right in front of me, like I tripped on it,
Uh-huh.
there was a magnet for my grad school.
What are the odds?
What are the freaking odds?
That's weird.
Clear as day. And it was like, don't give up on your dreams. Start today. And I was like, what? I literally tried to ignore it. I was like, this is ridiculous. I put it in my pocket, showed it to my partner. He's like, that's really weird. He's like, well, there's your sign. I'm like, no.
It's a magnet.
That's just a coincidence. And he's like, what are the odds? Like, why would it be there? You trip over it. And it's exactly your grad program saying these words. And then I'm like, well, I can't do it anyways because I need help covering my job so that I can attend the classes that I need to attend to finish. And that's not going to happen because we're short staffed and nobody's going to do it, blah, blah, blah. All the excuses.
Right.
The next day, one of my old coworkers asked me about grad school. And so I share with her kind of where I'm at, what I'm going through, what I'm thinking. And she goes, oh, no. You don't need to worry about it. I'm going to come and fill in for you on the days that you need to go to class. No problem. Not even an issue.
Wow.
I was like, what? And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I already talked to our supervisor, her old supervisor, and she's going to hire me as a temp so I can help.
Holy
So
cow.
you tell me what your schedule's going to be and I'll be here.
I love that. I
And
know
it
who
was
that
like-
was too.
And that was like, oh, like the universe is sending me a sign and it is
It
responding.
responded to you.
So in that sense, when those things have happened, yeah, like you have to believe in the signs.
Yeah, I mean, there's really clear indications. Sometimes it is a coincidence, right?
Mhm.
There's like some little moments where you can't deny it. There's been times where I've met someone and they felt so familiar. There's only been a handful of times where that's happened. I will not share names, but there's one particular time where I met someone who's still someone I know, and I couldn't shake the feeling like I've known him forever. And it was just the weirdest thing. I went to go see a band. He came up to talk to me, and I started talking super fast because once we were talking, I realized, oh, why am I feeling this? It's a weird feeling. I just got really scared of him.
Mhm.
So that's really bizarre. Sometimes like intuition just works in these mysterious ways. I don't even know how to explain that.
Yeah. I think that's true. There's like connections, right? And I think that speaks to the energetic part of it. I also wonder that too. Like if you're not as much of a skeptic and you believe in spirits and the universe doing work behind the scenes, then how much of that could be possible that like people are being put in your path and you're being nudged, you know?
In certain directions, I am kind of skeptical about
Mhm.
things. I think like I'm at odds with it, right? Because I know that wondrous, magical things have happened. I know that there's been kind of scary moments that I'm like, what the hell is that? Or what's happening? And I feel unsafe. I didn't mention, the ghosts that I've seen, but I have seen what resembled a person walking from a room to another room while I was alone in a house, and it really freaked me out. And I thought somebody broke in, but nobody broke in. There's been
Was that my
times,
house?
no, but your house, I did see what looked like somebody. The interesting part about your house is that it's older.
It's like
it goes
over
up.
100 years old.
And I think I was walking up into that part, and I saw through the crevice what looked like I had just missed somebody walking into the office space, and it freaked me out. And it didn't help that when I had first gotten there, the fire alarm kept going off for no reason.
Which, no story. Because that fire alarm, we couldn't explain it. There was no reason for it to be going off. And it just wouldn't stop.
Whatever was in your house or lives in your house, I don't have any bad feelings from it. I think they were protecting their home and they thought I was an intruder. And I've never felt like in danger, but I think I did feel like I was an intruder in their space.
And the dogs were there, which also, like, real quick, talking about how our animals,
they know,
can also see things.
Oh, my dog,
and I don't know if
here.
you feel this, but it gives me like a sense of security too, knowing that my dog is there.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he would react to something that felt unsafe in a different way, and I would notice it. So if he's chill, then I'm okay with it.
My dog, he reacts to like air. So I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know the difference. Sometimes he does do weird things in this space, but I feel so warm and cozy in my house. Like I feel safe in my house. And I have a little cute, adorable house that I love. So I don't really have anything negative here. I can't say that if you stood here by yourself, you wouldn't feel something because it's like a foreign space for you. I definitely think even though all the things that I've experienced or seen or the intuition part, right? I do really believe that my intuition is extremely strong. There's been times where I sit with people, and not that I think I'm a mind reader. Please, CIA, don't come for me. I'm not interested in working for you. And I wouldn't be able to do the job. But there's been times where I'm like sitting next to somebody and I'll say something and they'll look at me dead. They'll look at me like, what the hell? Because I was just thinking that. Or I know that happens between me and you a lot because we're pretty close.
We do that a lot to each other.
Yeah.
We'll be like, what are you talking about? And the other person will say, I didn't say anything. And then we'll respond, yeah, I heard you just say that you were thinking about eating Thai food today.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, no, but I was totally thinking that.
Yeah. But with people that are not my sibling, it still happens. And that's a really bizarre thing to me. Like I'll be like, oh, I'll ask a question or I'll send a text message and just something that I'm thinking about, or I see something that's funny, and I'll send it to a friend or somebody I'm really close to, and they'll be like, that is so fucking weird because I'm literally doing that thing right now. I have one friend that was always like out doing active things, and he's like, you freak me out. One that freaked him out. I was like, well, I just thought about this restaurant. I sent him the thing, and then he sent a picture, and he was sitting at the table of the restaurant. And he's like, I just biked here, and I'm scared of you.
And that really speaks to like the intuitive parts of ourselves. Sometimes the sign is just a reminder that we're listening to our own intuition, that we're getting information that, gives us answers to questions we didn't even know we had.
I didn't have the question. I don't need to know the answer. But my brain is like, yeah, we do. And also, I think this also kind of plays into intuition. And I don't know if this is the same case for you, but for me, I almost hear the answers to my own question sometimes. And I call that my inner knowing. I always have a narrator at all times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I call the inner knowing.
Yeah, 100%. It is your inner knowing. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are very disconnected from that. And that's like really at the heart of a lot of work that I do is helping people reconnect. Because like you said, if you can create the space like you have for yourself to allow and to really spend some time getting to know yourself and do some of your own healing work around all of that, that voice becomes louder and clearer and familiar. And you become more of a person who starts making decisions from a place of knowing than from a place of fear or lack.
I agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. It is pretty magical. And that stems a lot from like feminine energy, which any person, however you identify, can have strong feminine energy. So if you're really in touch with that as well, it just amplifies that knowing. Clearly, I'm not the only woo-woo in the family. You're also woo-woo, but I know you said you are still a little skeptical about some things.
I think I am openly
Open.
curious about many things, and I am aware of the grandness of everything. And I practice healthy skepticism to ensure that I'm not going insane.
Yeah.
And the other element of that is I have had different people who have meant a lot to me that were incredibly skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I've maybe absorbed some of that skepticism and shut off some of the magical openness and natural curiosity and flexibility of my own identity from being around the possibilities at such a young age and having parental figures like our father who had taken us into spaces where people were allowed to explore what they believed in, right? And like have crystals and burn candles and burn sage and enjoy the concepts of purifying spaces and meditation and having just this like general openness and not so much of a rigid confined ideal system.
Which I think that's what makes it healthy skepticism, is
Yeah.
having that openness. I
Yeah.
think when you don't have the openness and you're really closed-minded and unwilling to even consider possibilities, then that becomes toxic skepticism.
And it becomes narrowing, right? The other element to religion, and I won't touch on this too much, is that it eliminates a lot of the possibilities of your own life when you assume that the world works only one way and that people should only be living in one way. And I'll leave it there because I don't want to go too deep in that. But I do just think that being curious and being flexible and allowing the unknown to exist and for you to not have to know everything, for you to be comfortable with knowing that there's a lot in this universe that we likely will never truly understand, but we can still kind of wonder about it.
And you can be a completely grounded, normal, thoughtful, brilliant human being and still be open and still believe in things that are potentially unexplainable to many.
Yeah. And I like to bring science into it a lot.
Then you read it and then it's more meaningful. I love that term and I love that ideology behind this idea of wonder, of like, you don't have to not be a skeptic, but to be in this curious, open-minded place is to explore from this place of wonder like children do, right? To tap into that part of it, because then who knows what you might learn, right? Who knows what you might experience and what it might open your life up to.
A lot of people have this expectation, and society has this expectation that as you grow older, you are not allowed to wonder or be curious or be as flexible. That is the mindset of a child or an adolescent.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true. And I think that a lot of the chaos and anger and frustration that we see in the world is a reflection of that rigid, narrow mindset.
So all the things, ghosts, signs, intuition, in some way they serve a purpose. Even if we don't have all the answers, it's a beautiful thing to be able to just tap into a place of wonder and to explore that more, even as an adult, and to have fun with it. Share your ghost stories with people, connect over it, talk about maybe some unique, unexplainable things that you want to share with other people. It's such a beautiful opportunity to grow and learn.
And you also don't have to have all the answers. Maybe you don't even understand what you experienced, but it's okay to have those conversations. It's okay to feel really nervous about sharing that kind of stuff, right? Like some of it is like, what the hell did I just hear or see or feel? Or why do I feel this way around these people? Or how come I heard my grandpa singing a song in the bathroom and he's been dead for 15 years?
Hearing a ghost on your baby's monitor,
which did happen.
You weren't the only one.
Oh, wait, let's just tell that story and then we'll wrap it up.
Because my daughter was a baby. She was like a year old, maybe less than a year old. And we were watching a movie and my partner, myself, and Mitch, and it's nighttime and we have the monitor and nothing else has ever come on that monitor before besides her. And we all heard clear as day a woman's voice talking softly to a baby.
Yes.
And it was so clear that it freaked us out. We thought someone broke into our place and was trying to kidnap our child. And we all looked at each other in an instant, jumped up.
They immediately got
We
up and
immediately ran to the bedroom, slammed the door open, and our baby was asleep. And there was no one around.
No one in the room.
So,
I mean, that was one of the ones. And I think all of our expressions will be like locked into my mind. Like when I die, that's going to be one of the moments that flashes before my eyes. That's just one of those. I think for me, it was such a weird moment. It was just too clear. So it was almost unreal. But the other element was, oh, yeah, that's it. This life isn't it.
There's some things that are bigger
than this.
Yeah.
And that baby monitor just like confirmed it for me.
We could probably talk about this all night long, and maybe we'll do a part 2 or 3 with new ghost stories.
Potentially.
And so if you leave us some messages with your ghost stories, we might invite you to share with us. But at the end of the day, sometimes the mystery is simply the magic.
True. And ghosts are real. Maybe not. But the stories sure are.
Whether it's a feeling, a flicker of intuition, or a family ghost lighting up your hallway, some things just can't be explained.
And honestly, we don't need to explain them. We just need to keep listening, stay open, and share them with people who just get it.
We'll see you next episode, unless we get visited first.
Bye.
Bye.